Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 4-Star Podcast. I promised you, well, those of you that follow us on Facebook anyway, promised you a surprise. We have added a 4th star. Everybody, welcome Teige Mullen. Teige is a great friend of the three of ours. I've known him since we played football together in 3rd grade. Nick's known him from going to elementary school with him. So, Teige, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit here, I'll give you the floor for a couple minutes.
Great. Well, thank you, Jordan. Well, yes, my name's Teige Mullen. Big Bears fan, big Cubs fan. Haven't really watched too much Bulls recently in the past few years, ever since the good years with Derrick Rose and everything. I'm not that big of a hockey guy, but I'm learning. I was trying to watch hockey highlights to get ready for the lottery. I was like, that's a good move. Yeah. Ooh, that was a real nice goal. Nice. All right. Yeah, I want that one. But yeah. Just been in the Army for over 5 years now, and I'm enjoying that as much as I can.
Are you?
And I'm just yeah. Hey, as much as I can, right? It's an attitude, and I'm just trying to have some fun with my friends and talk about sports here. So thanks for having me on. I told them to get on the show. I barged into their office and I was like, "Hey, I've been in the Army, so I'm good at sweeping up places and mopping." Not sweeping rooms like tactically, but like I'm good at cleaning. And they were like, "You're in, man." So thanks for having me come on.
So Teige adds a little bit of West Coast flair along with me to the show. He's also out here. Currently, we're in the same time zone because Arizona doesn't do daylight savings. But we're excited to have him on again. We've all been friends with him for a very long time. So. And now we have the right number of hosts to fit our show title, and now we don't have to double up on the 4 stars. So thanks for being on. That's all we cared about, was having all the numbers line up.
It really
exactly.
makes
well, and then next week we're adding a 5th star, and then the next week 6th.
We'll just keep on adding names here.
What happens if Chicago adds more star, like another star to their flag? We're gonna have to change the name. We're gonna have to, and
add
I don't know.
Sport.
I don't know, a podcast called the 5-Star Podcast. That just sounds pretentious. Like the 4-star is like we're good, but not that good. We have room for improvement.
Well, I'll just wait till we get to 6 or 7 stars, and then it'll really start to get messed up here.
Oh God,
better have fun with that one.
I wonder because what would Chicago add the 5th star for? Would it be like Bears winning a Super Bowl? Or because all the stars were added, pre.
It was like
1940s or whatever.
Like 2 of them are for. We should know this. It's a real shame.
Oh no, I got you.
What I'm saying
is
what would they add the 5th one for?
And the 2 World's Fairs.
Okay,
that's
so
that's
what I'm saying is like, would the Bears winning another Super Bowl be 5 worthy? Like, what would make the Chicago?
If the Bears won the Super Bowl and the city burned down in the celebration, I think that would do it.
Yeah, we need another great fire. Yeah. Well, before we get too off topic here, we got a lot to cover this week. So we're actually going to lead off with the Blackhawks for once, hence my jersey choice this week. Don't know how it. I mean, I guess we had the 3rd best odds, but we won the draft lottery. Connor Bedard is going to be a Chicago Blackhawks.
The Chicago Blackhawks are on the clock.
Yeah. And I am willing to bet the pick will be in about 3 seconds.
It should be in. It should be in already. It should be in already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Blackhawks should be drafting Connor Bedard. There's not a lot to go over there. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
If you guys want to dig in a little bit on how you see that affecting the team next year and the years to come, I'll let you take that over.
Well, first, for people that don't know how good Connor Bedard is, if you followed hockey at all or any of the draft prospects coming up this year, you know how good Connor Bedard is. But if you don't know, this kid is amazing. He's 5'10", 185 pounds. He's a right-handed shot. He turns 18 in July, so he's not even 18 yet. And in this past year in the WHL for the Regina Pats, he in 57 games, 71 goals, 72 assists, 143 points, 2.51 points per game. So it's two and a half points per game. Now, if you go back and look at the forwards in the last 20 years or so, and look at the forwards coming out of the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League, and you take what am I saying? Essentially, that 2.51 points per game among forwards in the last 20 years is third all time behind Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and just ahead of someone we know very well, Patrick Kane. He's got an elite shot. He's got a great shot. Like, watch his highlights. He just releases it, and then it's just in the back of the net. You can't do anything about it. He's got great hands. He's a nightmare for the defense. The one downside is his frame. He might be a bit too small to be like that top center. Some teams like their centers to be a bit bigger. But if that's the case, you put him on the wing, and then the Hawks have another Patrick Kane. So that's Connor Bedard, and he's very good.
Yeah, I mean, this really changes everything for the Hawks, I think, because we went into this outlook like I didn't even consider this as like it was a possibility, obviously, because the lottery odds, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too much when it comes to the prospects of getting Bedard. But the fact you get him in here now is just it changes the entire trajectory, I think, of the entire organization here. And just to add on to the numbers aspect that Nick kind of brought up, you look at him in the World Junior U20 Championships this past year. In 7 games, this guy had 23 points in 7 games, 9 goals, 14 assists. So this guy is just an offensive force on the ice. Just really, really tough for opposing teams to have to contend with him. Where this gets exciting for the Blackhawks now is that you add Bedard into the mix, but also the Hawks are set up really well in terms of, some of the young talent they already have in the system here. And then you look at the draft pick situation for them moving forward. They have 2 first-round picks this year, 4 second-round picks this year, 2 third-round picks, and they get to 2024, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks. 2025, 2 first-round picks, 2 second rounds. Like, you keep on going here. Like, they are stacked with assets now to where they can add some young talent into the organization to really get the ball rolling on this thing. And it could get exciting here.
In addition to that, they're not hamstrung by any big contracts. Like, after this year, the only 2 players signed through the end of the season making more than $5 million a year that aren't on their like entry-level contract are Seth Jones and Connor Murphy. And Seth Jones is the only one between the 2 of them making more than $5 million a year. So they're not up against the cap. They're in a position where they're able to take on some bad contracts by the time it is going to take some time. Like we are very excited about Connor Bedard, and he definitely ramps up the process, but it's still going to take some time. Basically, everybody else they draft from here on out, it's going to be a year or 2 in Rockford or wherever they end up developing before they start making contributions at the NHL level. But I mean, next year's going to be really fun. Bedard should be ready to play immediately, so it's just going to be him and Reichel scoring goals. Those draft picks that Andrew mentioned, they are probably going to be a high lottery pick again. You're going to get another really great talent. So it's still going to be a process, but I think Kyle Davidson has set up he's got a lot to play with, and we're going to see where it goes from here.
To add one more thing for me before Jordan go to you, speaking of excitement for the team, I just saw this on Twitter here from Darren Ravel, business guy for Around Sports. I forget who he's writing for right now, but anyways, he mentioned here that the Blackhawks, since they got the number 1 overall pick and the rights to Connor Bedard, they have sold more than 500 full season tickets worth more than $2.5 million.
Oh my God.
Already. So if you want to talk about Blackhawks fans being hyped about this, like, they are ready to go.
Wow.
So big time.
I think the front office is super happy because I don't know how many jerseys they would have sold in the team store if they're all either Lucas Reichel or Seth Jones. Because now
probably not a lot.
Probably not a lot.
I can tell you, I have not purchased a Blackhawks jersey since Kane, Taves, and Seabrook left. Those are the 3. I have a Duncan Keith too. So those are the 4 that I have with actual names and numbers on them. This one's a blank, but the only thing I really had to add, fortunately, as Chicago sports fans, we are used to rebuilding. So we should be able to be patient and give the Blackhawks a little bit of time to kind of put everything together, get those pieces in place. I did not realize we had nearly that many high round draft picks. That's really exciting, so that we can give Bedard some good complimentary.
Well, when you trade everybody worth a damn for the past 3 years and essentially tear the team down to its studs, you're going to amass some draft capital. So
this is true. So I think really that's all there is to say about the Hawks. That was just the most exciting thing to kind of happen this week. We'll flip over to the Cubs here. Had a bit of a rough stretch. We'll start by kind of going over the 4-game series against Washington. Game 1, we got the W, won 5-1, and then we lost the next 3 by scores of 4-1, 2-1, and 4-3. And on top of that, our catcher, who is surprisingly hitting the ball very well, Yan Gomes, got caught on a backswing and I think he's about halfway through his 7-day IL stint with a concussion. So not quite as exciting as what we got going on here recently, but good news, Miguel Amaya got called up. He's been swinging the bat really well down in AA. Got the call up to take some at-bats. So if you guys want to dig in a little bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, there's a lot of, obviously, feelings about kind of that Washington series and just some of the decisions that David Ross made. But an interesting point that we were digging up a few weeks ago, we saw kind of that there was a big win-loss disparity between Yan Gomes' starts and Tucker Barnhart's and now Miguel Amaya's. And so I made sure to keep track of that with some extra digging. So heading into today, right, because the Cubs would play the Cardinals today, but that's for next week. Yan Gomes' starts were 13-4. His 13th win was when Tucker Barnhart had to come in because he got hit in the head. Tucker Barnhart's starts coming into today are only 4-10. He has never won a back-to-back game starting at catcher. And Miguel Amaya now sits at 1-2, but yesterday was kind of rough. So, yeah, so like we can see kind of that the team, I don't know, the pitchers love throwing to Gomes. He's clearly kind of coming to his own, coming into the Cubs, and also it just kind of makes it seem like it was kind of the good move, cutting ties with Wilson.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. You mentioned Ross and his decision making, and there were a couple moments in the Washington series, and this is all I really have to say about it. I'd be a lot more upset about it if Mervis and Morel weren't on the roster already, but there were a couple moments that just really infuriated me because they weren't there. In game 2, there were the bases loaded and Edwin Rios was coming up against a righty. And is Edwin Rios, he's barely played it all this year. He's there for that lefty righty matchup. And Ross pinch hit for him for Mancini. And I was sitting there. I was just like, if Edwin Rios isn't taking that at bat, why is he even on the roster? Like, what is the point of that? And then in game 3, top of the 9, there were 2 on, no one out, again, down by a run. Eric Hosmer, who was the designated hitter that day, went up there and was sack bunting. If your designated hitter that is batting, and I think it was like the 7 or 8 hole that day, is up there and he is sack bunting, like that tells you something is wrong with the roster. And granted, they seem to have fixed that, but I just wanted to bring that up because both of those moments really angered me.
Rightfully so. I do want to circle back to a little more Yan Gomes versus Tucker Barnhart comparison real quick. I had to cough, so I couldn't jump in. But I think before Gomes got injured, he was hitting slightly above 300. So like solid batting average. That's where you want to be. Tucker Barnhart is currently hitting sub 200, which is just absolutely abysmal. Like every time Tucker Barnhart comes up to the plate and I see men on base, a little part of me dies inside. So I did want to dig in on that a little bit. Teige, looked like you had something to bring up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point. Yes. I mean, obviously, most of the time with catchers, right, their value comes from defense and their value comes from catching a good game, obviously, and that's what most teams will take. But it's just, I think, kind of what's so frustrating about kind of those decisions with the national series, like if you want to be competitors, those are games that you should be winning, right? And I mentioned before the series started to one of our group chats, I was like, we got to take 3 out of 4. Like, come on, like that's not even like that should be out of the question to take 3 out of 4. So the fact that we didn't even go 500 in a 4-game series against a really bad team was just kind of like I said, it just kind of makes you die inside a little bit because you're because it's so frustrating to be like, are we competing, guys, or are we tanking? And now we finally did call these guys up, and now we're sub 500, I think, again. And it's like, what are we doing here? So it's just frustrating to watch.
And that's the thing with all these close losses, and we touched on this last week when Mervis and Morel were still raking in AAA. But it's at the end of the day, a lot of your record in one-loss games in baseball is a really fluky game. So a lot of that comes down to luck. If you're like really in one direction versus like somewhere close to 500, but it's harder to accept those losses when you don't have your best 26 guys out there, and when that roster isn't being used optimally, and when everybody goes cold at the wrong time, and you're still losing these one-run games. We brought up the stat last week how they were just abysmal over the Marlins series with runners in scoring position. That has continued, I believe, since the Marlins series. They're like 18 for 97 or something like that. With runners in scoring position.
I was watching the game today before we got started, and Boog.
They lost, by the way.
Yeah. Boog kind of got a little bit heated, and I think over the course of the whole season so far, they're still hitting roughly 300 with runners in scoring position. Over the last few games, they're hitting about 180 with runners in scoring position. But before that, they were hitting like, I want to say he said 350 with runners in scoring position. So right now, unfortunately, I don't want to like freak out about it because you're going to have some regression back to the mean at some point. If you were doing that good, you're going to have a cold streak to bring you right back to the middle. So unfortunately, right now, we are in the middle of the cold streak. But the good news is our division is still hot garbage. The Pirates, who are in the division lead, just snapped a 7-game losing streak today, if I remember correctly. So it's still this division is still anybody's game to win. I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet. It is frustrating, but eventually, again, we're going to get back to that 250 with runners in scoring position. That'll kind of even out from the hot streak we had versus the cold streak we have now.
Well, you certainly hope that bringing up Matt Mervis to the lineup will help in that regard. I know Nick's very happy about that because he's been on a Twitter rampage about that entire situation. And Nick, I'm just glad you can finally get that off your chest. How are you feeling now that we got him up at the big league level?
I am feeling phenomenal. And what makes me feel even better about it is that they came out and said that Mervis is going to get most of the reps going forward at first base and DH. He's going to be playing, maybe not like every day, but like he's going to be a main fixture in that lineup, and Hosmer is going to be more of a bench role, which thank God we've been screaming for that for like weeks at this point. So I'm just happy about that.
Yeah, my father-in-law is a huge Padres fan, and so every week I was texting him like, "Take him back, please." Just come on, man. What can I do to you like to help you guys take him back? And he's like, "No, you enjoy that. You suffer now."
Every ground ball out, I'm just like, I was just cringing from Hosmer.
Even his clutch RBIs were all like ground balls. Like the one clutch RBI a few days ago was a ground ball that the second baseman just missed because they were playing in.
Well, I think basically the general consensus, there were obviously, as there are in any series, a few bright spots against the Nationals, but overall not good. Then we go host the Marlins, and actually it was a pretty decent series. Little 3-game stint there, just kick off a homestand, won the first one 4-1, second one 4-2, and lost a nail biter the other day 5-4 in extras. That was gut wrenching, but close game. We played overall well, I would think.
Yeah, 14 innings. We gave it. Adbert had the ball called on him, which then whoever was up to bat ended up ripping like a double anyway. So I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, obviously it's good to bounce back against the Marlins. It would have been better to sweep them, but against good pitching, Sandy Alcantara shut us out for 8 straight innings, and then they kept them in. And that was kind of the only reason why we were in there yesterday was because we rallied, and on Saturday it was a comeback win too. So this team definitely shows that we're not quitting, and I like to see that. The cliche where we're scrappy, right? But no, like it's good to see that we're not quitting. It's just like we're so close, man. There's just a few pieces here and there, I think, that it's going to be start feeling like 2015, 2016 again, hopefully.
Well, I think a good indicator of how close we are, poor Miguel Amaya. I think he's been up for 4 games now, if I remember correctly. He's had, not including today, because I didn't track it, but I think through the Miami game yesterday, he had 5 balls put in play over 100 miles an hour exit velocity. None of them fall in for a hit. He finally gets his first hit, and it's a weak little dribbler that just sneaks past the shortstop and the second baseman right past the base. So did get his first hit. I'm feeling good about him. Obviously can crush the ball. Eventually, again, talking about regressing back to the mean, eventually balls that are hit like that are going to land. So I think that's just another indicator of how we're just like one
and
little team
it isn't even just the batted ball profile with Amaya. It's the fact that he, like, defensively catching, like Wisniewski came out and said he trusted Amaya to call the game and like really enjoyed pitching to him. I believe one other pitcher, I don't remember if it was Smiley or Tyone, said it. Russ spoke very highly of it. So yeah, it's going to I'm sorry. If you're not watching on YouTube, Jordan moved around on the screen, and I thought he was gone, and I was very confused for a moment.
I meant to click the mute button on my mic and accidentally removed myself from the stream. So, whoops.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it's a great first stint for Amaya. He's probably going to get sent back down because I don't think they want to carry 3 catchers on the roster. But it's a great sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
well, hang on, Nick, because we had Luis Torrens. So
no, we traded him.
I know. I'm just saying, like, we carried 3 catchers at one point. So,
what do you guys think of this? What do you think this guy cash considerations we got from the Orioles? Do you think he's going to be any good?
Well, as we know, the Ricketts need more money. Obviously,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Gallagher Way isn't what it once was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, the last thing I do kind of want to touch on with the Cubs, obviously you guys can dig into more stuff if you'd like. But the last thing I wanted to bring up, the pitching has been incredible. Marcus Stroman, Justin Steele, and Drew Smiley are all through yesterday in the top 25 in ERA, WHIP, and batting average against for all of MLB. We have 3 of the 25 best pitchers in the entire league on the roster. Jamison Tyone just came back from an injury list stint, and Kyle Hendricks is still making a rehab start. So our rotation is solid, like rock solid. I'm very excited because, again, I mean, if our pitching is that good, if we have, if we just called up Matt Mervis, obviously there's going to be an adjustment period. I'm not wanting to rush him at all. Christopher Morel just got called up today, didn't play because they had a crazy schedule with Iowa. Totally justified. Take the day off, rest, get ready. And again, if we can find a way to keep Amaya, honestly, I'd say just at this point, get rid of Barnhart if everybody's liking Amaya that much and his bat's that much better. But I'm not the general manager. So, but I mean,
did Barnhart sign for 2 years? Or was it just a 1-year deal? I don't remember.
It's funny. I was going to ask the same thing. I'll find out for you guys. Hang on.
Yeah, so somebody look that stat that real quick.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have a crazy good pitching rotation. We've got young talent that has finally been called up that should contribute on offense. And if the rotation is that good, you get kept in close games. And if these guys are replacing people like Mancini and Hosmer and Rios and who was the other one? Torrens. Luis Torrens. Slipped my mind for a second there. But you got those 4 guys that started the year not hitting the ball at all. I mean, in theory, by the end of the year, we should have this all put together, and I think we can at least make it to the playoffs. I'm not going to say we're going to, be a World Series contender this year, but we should at least be able to play some October baseball.
They just got to get a few of these hitters out of their slumps with runners in scoring position. I mean, it's just a rough stretch at the moment, but yeah, the pitching depth is something that I'm most encouraged by because we have Tyone coming back, Hendricks coming back at some point. If they can be manageable, give you a few innings hitting there here and there, don't get blown up. Wisniewski's strung together a couple of nice starts in a row. You hope to see him improve, and then Stroman and Justin Steele. Justin Steele has been phenomenal. He's like second in the league in ERA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if he can keep this up, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but if he can keep up this pace, I think he's a legitimate Cy Young contender this year.
Well, yeah, if you're second in the league in ERA, you're going to contend for the Cy Young. But it's just a matter of if he can keep it. And we should pump the brakes, but but it is exciting. It is encouraging.
Yeah. So to answer the first question, Barnhart has a 2-year contract with next year being a player option. So, I mean, I can't see why he wouldn't exercise that.
Picking that up.
Yeah. To talk more about Justin Steele, it's funny you mentioned him because I don't have the numbers on hand, unfortunately, but I was looking at stats earlier, and there's a Twitter discourse going around about how Justin Steele doesn't really throw impressive pitches. Like his stuff, when you look at it, analytics from just the numbers, it doesn't really look great. Like his swinging strikes isn't great. And it's just kind of like, when's he going to regress and just kind of like have that blow up stretch because his stretch has been so good. But I think it's really just kind of a credit to him. He's a fearless lefty that pitches inside with a cutting action fastball to righties, and they're getting on top of it with weak grounders. And then our defense is so good. So it's like, yeah, analytics, I see why like everybody's kind of scared. Like, oh, like he stuff wise he doesn't got it. But I mean, if you keep painting your fastballs inside to hitters, there's not much that they can do about it. So I really hope that he keeps it up and that we have a formidable rotation moving forward.
So I do have the stats up right now. I'm looking down at my phone. Justin Steele is currently second in Major League Baseball with a 1.45 ERA. Only guy better than him is Sonny Gray on the Twins with a 1.35. So he's the best pitcher in the National League for ERA. Stroman sitting in 8th at a 2.28. Drew Smyly is 24th with a 3.05. If we're looking at batting average against, Stroman is in 10th with a 196. Steele is 13th with a 200. Smyly is 18th with a 207. And whip, it looks like they fell a little bit, but Justin Steele's in 12th with a 0.95. Whip is walks and hits per inning pitched for those of you that aren't baseball stat nerds like we are. Marcus Stroman is 17th with a 106. And Drew Smyly is not in the top 50 for that, because I think he got beat up a little bit the other day.
And this team is still somehow under 500 with a bullpen that's not even that bad. Like,
the bullpen has been surprisingly much better than we thought it would be.
Right, and that's because the scoring, the run support has just been going down. I mean, the JD from the Cubs broadcast booth today during the Cardinals game was mentioning how Stroman is averaging less than 2 runs of run support. Yep. Come on, guys, we got to pick this up.
Yeah. If there's a theme to the season before that we've covered every single week, it's that the pitching has been lights out, fantastic for the most part. When are the bats going to come around and be more consistent? And you hope that with the young guys they're bringing up that they can start to get a little bit of a spark there. Like Mervis in his first few outings here, like he's got a 571 OPS right now. You'd expect that to go up as he gets more experience and starts to get into a little bit of a rhythm. And if he can, I mean, you never know. That could be a huge jolt to this offense right now because, yeah, they've been in a bit of a rough stretch. And we've certainly covered that here.
One more guy that's having a little bit of a rough stretch, Patrick Wisdom is, when he makes contact with the ball, it's leaving the yard. He's still up there for the home run lead. I think he's sitting at 11 right now, but he has been in a little bit of a slump lately, which with Christopher Morel coming up, who normally plays, I believe, center field, which is occupied by Cody Bellinger, and I cannot see that changing at all. With Wisdom in a slump, I think his job might be a little bit in jeopardy right now.
By the way, can we talk about how awesome Cody Bellinger has been this season so far?
Yeah, we definitely
like we've done every week.
he's been. I just to reiterate again, like he looks like every single week. It looks like he's getting. I try not to get like too ahead of myself in saying that he's back to being what he was, those first couple of years with the Dodgers, where he's one of the best hitters in baseball, but. Yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers right now. He is like
one of the best hitters in baseball.
One of the best hitters in baseball right now. So, yeah. I mean, we talk
with
about
a plus glove,
right? So we talk about the offense being a struggle here. Like Bellinger, he's been like the one consistent guy. I feel like for this Cubs team, and
Nico.
And I hope that can keep up because again, he's on a 1-year deal. So who knows what that means for next offseason, whatever. But we're getting way too ahead of ourselves here with that conversation. But for the purpose of this year, like, gosh, I hope he can keep that up, because it would be awesome for that 1 year deal to turn out to be, the way it is turning out to be right now. Anyway.
Well, anybody else have any? Oh, Ty, go for it.
I got a lot to say about Cody Bellinger, man, because that was like the first for this show. That was like my first research piece was Cody Bellinger. No, he's on the surface. So this is what's going to be so interesting. And obviously, it's too early to talk trade deadline. I'm sure we'll have a massive trade deadline episode when that gets closer. But what's interesting about Cody is that on the surface, his stats look great, right? They're close to matching his pace from his MVP year, because you don't really want to. I mean, you can't ignore last year in 2021 and 2020, but he was hurt. He was banged up. His swing was all out of whack. I've read that he's changed his swing mechanics again. It's not like he's like did a massive change. You can see that, but he's changing some of his fundamentals. Just tweaking them, giving them little tweaks, and it's paying off dividends. But what's interesting to me is that for this year with Cody, when it comes to analytics, right? And I know that's an age-old debate, like, oh, the eye test versus analytics, and like, well, what kind of production do we see, right? Because with the RBIs, home runs, his slugging on base percentage all looks good, right? It's a bit lower than his MVP year, but it still looks good. His WRC plus, which is weighted runs created, which is a very good stat to measure. Plus, which takes into account stadium factors and everything. It's a good stat to show for hitters. Like if you want to tell somebody who's a good hitter, like his WRC plus is like 149, which is Cody's this year so far. Is that good? Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. What's interesting though, what I find really interesting is his hard hit percentages. His sweet spot is actually right on the mark of his MVP year, but his barreling percentages are down from his MVP year, and his WOBA. So what WOBA is, for those who don't know, it's called weighted on base average, and it tries to measure how effective a hitter is with their it takes into account everything: walks, home runs, triples, doubles, how they're getting on base and creating runs. It measures all of that, and that's another stat that people want to try to use to show like just how good a hitter is. So a WOBA of over 400 is considered elite. From like 350, 400 is good. His WOBA this year is 394, and his MVP year it was 415. What's interesting, this is what I'm kind of curious to see how Jed navigates it. His xWOBA, which means expected WOBA, is only at 336. What does that mean? That means that he's getting lucky, right? And his average exit velocity is at 87.7 miles per hour during his MVP year is 91.1. So it's actually he's hitting the ball a lot softer. He's getting a lot softer contact than he was, but he's still putting up his MVP numbers. What does that typically mean for a hitter? It typically means that they're getting lucky. So what does Jed want to do? We'll talk more trade deadline and how the Cubs look then, but I could see Jed trying to ship him off with all these outfielding prospects coming up.
I think you mentioned at the tail end that, he's not hitting the ball as hard, but he's putting that production up. And I think part of that is the new shift rules. We, past couple of years, he's been one of those guys that teams very heavily shift him because he's a heavy pull hitter. So, with those new rules in place, there's more gaps open for him to find the hole. So I think that's part of it too.
Sure, it's definitely part of it, but I'm curious to see. I'm excited to see. I want him to do well. I want him to be a stud, man.
Oh, no.
Did I lose you guys?
Did we lose him?
He's back.
Okay. Are we good? We're back. All right, we're back now.
Good.
Hey, internet, it's happening. Technology. I'm excited to see him. I would love to see him become a stud. I would love to see him keep this up and just and get those those analytics back up. But let's give it some more time. We are still in May.
Yeah. I really hope we're buyers at the trade deadline, because that would be really exciting. I think that should pretty much sum it up for the Cubs for this week. They did just start a 3-game set against the Cardinals at Wrigley Field today. We'll dig into that series on this coming Sunday's episode. Then they have a day off Thursday, and then they travel to Minnesota to play the Twins at Target Field over the weekend. Moving right along here, we'll go into the jersey that Teige is wearing this week. Bears rookie minicamp was this past weekend. I didn't really hear any crazy stories. Nothing too out of the ordinary, just minicamp.
Rookie minicamp.
The one thing I did want to bring up, obviously, anytime there are Bears team activities, everybody's wanting to know how Justin Fields is doing. So Luke Getsy did get interviewed and said that, quote, Justin Fields is light years ahead of where he was at this time last year, which I think is very exciting because it did seem like they started putting everything together towards the end of the season last year. So if he's already far and away ahead of where he was the closing of last year, I got a good feeling about this year.
Not to be a pessimist about that, but like even Matt Nagy was hyping up Mitch going into 2019, and then he put up 3 points against the Packers in one of the worst displays I've ever seen. So,
Yeah, but Matt Nagy's Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say that I don't know how Luke Getsy knows this because Justin Fields is in the building every day, obviously, but like they haven't had he hasn't had a single practice where Justin Fields is like on the field.
Getsy's on vacation, dude. Getsy's chilling.
Yeah. So I don't know how he knows this, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, you like it to where he's not saying, Justin Fields, he's obviously a step behind compared to his last year. He's a lot better than that, obviously. So, I guess like I would expect Justin Fields to be in a much better place going into this year. He going to be a little bit more comfortable in the offense. I think last year was definitely a bit of an adjustment, I think, for him because he had to rework his entire, footwork mechanics in training camp last year, which was an underrated storyline. And that kind of reflected the first 4 games of the year. Like he was all out of whack the first 4 games with his footwork and timing and everything. And once he settled down and really got going there. But yeah, I'm just really excited to see how he does with DJ Moore as his number 1 wide receiver now, because that's going to be the biggest determining factor of how ahead Justin Fields is this year is can he get a connection with DJ Moore? Because we've seen this over the years where that number 1 wide receiver is really, really important for these young quarterbacks.
Well, I'm feeling good about it because I know the second DJ Moore got to Chicago, Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and Justin Fields were all hanging out at a Bulls game. So they clearly hit it off right away. I from everything I've ever heard about Justin Fields, he wants to get to work right away, make sure that the chemistry is there come regular season. The kid's shown he's a hard worker. I don't see any problems coming with a connection between Justin Fields and DJ Moore.
It feels good that the Bears have a lot of options at wide receivers now.
It's crazy, right?
Like for the first time in my life, basically.
So we should get rid of some of them, right?
I think so because as we know,
crowded.
You can only have 2 good wide receivers. That's the way it goes. Like
1. I don't know. What is this? 2.
Only 1? Okay.
I want 1 good wide
only
receiver.
1.
Yeah.
Never mind. Only 1 good wide receiver. I forgot. We're Bears.
Yeah, who needs like a Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill wide receiver room, right? Overrated.
True.
Not me.
Completely unnecessary.
Hey, you see,
for those of you,
he didn't need 1.
For those of you that can't tell, we are being heavily sarcastic. There's been a lot of chatter on Bears Twitter about
Bears Twitter doing Bears Twitter things.
About us not needing all these wide receivers, and our take on it is yes, we do. Why would you complain about having too much talent?
And not even complaining about having too much talent. It's not just about the talent; it's about the depth. Do you remember last year towards the end of the year when like Dante Pettis and Equimania St. Brown were our wide receiver 1 and 2 because Mooney and Claypool were hurt? Like, do you want that to happen again? Like, let's say, God forbid, like DJ Moore and Chase Claypool go down. Are you really happy with running those 2 back out there again? And, so you want to have, it's not a bad thing to have a lot of good players that can contribute.
Do you mean to tell me you did not enjoy watching Equinemius St. Brown and Dante Pettis drop balls and pretend to be wide receivers for the Chicago Bears last season? I thought it was great.
Well, technically, they're still in the roster, so that could still be an option for you if you want.
Except they're going to do it maybe once a game or once every other game rather than like 3 times a game.
I mean, the bottom line is that like it's 2023, guys. Like at some point, the Bears, you got to move into the modern NFL here. And what are all the great teams doing is they're loading up at wide receiver, they're loading up at weapons, and they're giving their quarterbacks as many guys to throw to as possible. Look at the 49ers, what they do. Like they don't have a quarterback, but their offense is so dang good because you have Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. And oh, by the way, you got Deebo Samuel, you got Brandon Ayuk, you got George Kittle, you got McCaffrey out of the backfield. Like if you have all these elite weapons to throw to, and I'm not saying the Bears are elite like whatsoever. They're decisively average right now in terms of weaponry, which is saying a lot compared to last year. Yeah. But I mean, again, you just want to keep stacking, weapons. And if Getsy knows what he's doing and it feels is the guy, hopefully that means you're getting fireworks on offense. That's the goal here.
The fullback stays though.
Bust out that T formation.
Always got to have a fullback.
All right. Well, I think that should wrap up our Bears coverage for this week. Again, not a ton happening now that mini camps have started. If there is any news, we will definitely be breaking. Well, I shouldn't say breaking. I don't think we're popular enough to be breaking yet, but we will definitely be covering any big Bears news coming up in the next few weeks.
Twitter retweet.
Yeah, retweet everything on Twitter. Thank you, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport.
Yeah.
So moving on now to the last team to cover, the Bulls. Andrew, I am going to let you take this right away because I know you have been waiting to talk about this.
Well, okay, so obviously there's not a ton going on with the Bulls, with it being the offseason and the Bulls, as usual, not being a playoff team worth talking about. But we did get some news that the Bulls quietly and secretly gave president of basketball operations Arturas Karnisovas a contract extension, which I don't know how long it's going to keep him with the Bulls through, but the fact that they did this as quietly and as sneakily as possible tells me all you want to know about how the Reinsdorfs view this entire just dumpster fire of an organization right here. And I don't have enough bad words to to put here for how dumb.
I'm surprised you haven't used any, to be completely honest with you.
I'm trying to keep this PG here, guys.
It might be tough. PG-13 is fine.
PG-13. It might be tough though. We might go X-rated here.
Does that mean does PG-13 mean we each get one F word to use per show?
I think so. I think that's the rule.
That's
unscripted.
I was going to say I was kind of surprised you didn't describe the Bulls as a shit show, but I'll burn mine.
I mean, they are a shit show. But let's just break down everything that Arturas Karnisovas has done since taking the job. Hiring Billy Donovan as his head coach, which Billy Donovan, to be fair, head coaches in the NBA, to be fair.
Thank you.
It's a Letterkenny reference. But look, NBA coaches, there's only like a certain few that actually make a difference on an NBA team. If we're being real here, there's only a couple that are actually you can tell, make a sizable difference to their teams winning games. Billy Donovan ain't one of those guys. So it's not like the hiring is bad or anything, but with Billy Donovan, you bring him in, he's not looking to come in here and do a rebuild project. He's looking to come in here and be competitive right away because he made that known very clearly when he, signed with the Bulls. I'm not coming here for rebuild. We're trying to win. We're trying to win as soon as possible. And so they make the move for Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline a couple of years ago, giving up 2 first-round picks, giving up Wendell Carter Jr. And you get to that next offseason. Signing Lonzo Ball, which they ended up tampering in that signing and giving up a future second-round pick to make that signing. So not only do you get Lonzo Ball,
I just want to interject real quick. That is the reason we probably won't have a draft pick this draft.
Yes,
because we tampered with Lonzo Ball.
Yes,
that's
the reason. The reason we don't have a draft pick in this draft is because we decided to give up 2 first-round picks for Nikola Vucevic, who is a free agent going into this year and wasn't all that good with this team over the past couple of years. And they signed Lonzo Ball, who I don't even know if he's going to play again because he has those knee injury issues, which, I mean, it sucks for him, but that was part of the risk of signing Lonzo Ball is he's always had injury issues with his knees and lower body and all that stuff. You knew that going into it.
You take the injury out of it, it's a great signing, but unfortunately the injury kept him sidelined for a season and a half. So
I don't think he's ever played more than 55 games in the season. There's always something going on with Lonzo Ball, and it sucks because he's a very fun player to watch when he's actually on the court, but he's very rarely on the court. So you're stuck with that contract now. You give up another first round pick for DeMar DeRozan, which I think it's top 10 protected. But if this team is, what I think they're going to try to do is they're going to be stubborn and they're going to try to get into the play-in every year. So they're probably going to be giving up that pick because they're not going to tank. You're giving up for DeMar DeRozan, who DeRozan's been awesome for the Bulls, but what has he really done to be a difference maker for the Bulls? He gets a ton of points out there. He's a great scorer, fun player to watch in the regular season. but his game does not translate to winning basketball in the postseason because he doesn't shoot threes. He's not a good defensive player. And if you haven't paid attention to basketball over the last decade or so, those are like the two most important things right now is can you shoot threes and can you be versatile on defense? And DeMar DeRozan does zero of those two things. Like he's a certified bucket getter, but he doesn't do the two things that like you really need to be a winning team. And then you give a max contract to Zach LaVine, who Zach LaVine is a talented scorer, but he's not a max player. He just is not that guy. So
I would agree.
Yeah. So
Andrew, you're our Berto. You're our Bulls Berto, man. You're gonna keep going and going and going.
Go for it.
You guys don't let me just go on and on. You cut me off when you feel like it.
No, you're on a roll. All of that was valid.
And again,
the only thing I wanted to add, going back to DeMar, I think his greatest contribution to a Bulls playoff run was having his daughter at the Toronto game.
That was awesome.
That was legendary.
Was it though? Come on.
Yeah, it was.
Who needs to hear?
Okay, that was fantastic.
All right. It was.
I'll take that. I'll take that for sure.
She made the Toronto Raptors shoot worse than Shaq from the line as a team in a win or go home game on home court. You know what? If Reinsdorf extended AK after that game because of that, hey, like, look, you brought DeMar here. I mean, that was awesome. We're gonna give you. I actually wouldn't be too mad about that.
But the big problem with me is that this kind of like this personifies the ultimate problem with Reinsdorf and the organization as a whole, which is that they are just so content, not even content, like they strive for mediocrity as an organization. They do not have any like bone in their body about trying to compete for championships here. They just want to be good enough to be relevant in the postseason discussion so that they can get a couple extra games in the postseason for some extra revenue, and they can use that to go destroy the White Sox organization as well. Like that's the entire motivation here is that get enough money to use in the White Sox to make the White Sox a dumpster fire as well. That's it. Like it just reeks of just again, like I said, mediocrity. It reeks of not having I guess a forward thinking attitude to your organization. And honestly, I think that when you look at this, like I honestly think that the pitch for bringing in Karnisovas in the first place is he told them basically, I can get you guys to the playoffs as soon as possible. Here's how I'm going to do it. Whether that makes us a championship contender or not, who knows, but I'll get you to the playoffs as soon as possible. And we'll see what happens. But the Bulls are in maybe the worst situation in all of basketball right now because they don't have any picks. They don't have cap space. They don't have assets, to trade and get draft picks and young players to really start to, rebuild this thing if they want to go that direction. And so they're just kind of stuck. And that's kind of where I have a huge problem with this is that you're basically rewarding a guy who has you in this situation where you're just stuck in the ladder of mediocrity.
Unfortunately, I would tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
With all of that being said, I think we should move on to our 4 stars of the week here. And what's awesome is now that we have a fourth person, nobody has to double up. There's less confusion. So we'll jump right into it. So Nick, I'm going to do you last. Andrew, if you want to start.
Yeah, I can start. So our first star of the week is going to be Justin Fields, and it has nothing to do with him doing anything on the field, obviously, because the Bears aren't playing any football as of right now. But Justin Fields did something amazing this past week. This past Sunday, actually, graduating from Ohio State officially with getting his college degree. And I think I'm trying to look for what the degree was here. I think it was, I can't find it. Anyway, but Justin Fields getting his college degree. That's just really awesome. And it just shows that, Fields, he's a guy that just gets it, man. He just gets, what it means to be, the type of, I guess, leader you want in your organization on and off the field. And it shows the level of the drive I think he has to, finish what he started from an academic standpoint, not just resting on his laurels as a player here. And what I found to be really awesome as well is that Kevin Warren, the new president for the Bears, was there for Justin Fields' graduation. And
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, if you don't know that, Kevin Warren and Justin Fields actually have a history, because Kevin Warren was the Big Ten commissioner when Justin Fields was playing at Ohio State. There's actually a bit of an issue with Justin Fields and Kevin Warren, because that was during the COVID year when there was a whole issue about like where, was college football going to have their season that year. And Justin Fields was one of the main athletes out there who's very prominent of wanting to get a season in. And you have Kevin Warren, his first year as a commissioner, not really knowing what he's doing first year on the job, having to deal with just unprecedented circumstances there. So anyway, with that said, I thought that was a really cool moment for, two of, the pillars of your organization there, with your president, who's responsible for, the building of this new stadium, and then Justin Fields, who's your franchise quarterback moving forward, to have that moment together. I thought that was really neat. So shout out to Justin Fields. Congratulations to him for a job well done there. And really awesome stuff. Hopefully that can, really come helpful in the future for him.
All right. I will handle our number 2 star of the week. It's going to be Matt Mervis. Congrats on the call up. I think he had 20 people at Wrigley Field for the first game, about 10 people at Wrigley Field for the second game. And he got 2 singles, both hits, drove in runs. So congrats to Matt Mervis on the call up. We are very much looking forward to a bright and prosperous future for you in the Windy City. So shout out Matt Mervis. Teige, you are up next, sir, with the 3rd star of the week.
And Miguel Maya, we didn't forget about you, buddy, but you'll get your star. Don't you worry. But this 3rd star of the week goes to Jed Hoyer, because he's vindicated. I'll let Cole take care of it later in his 180. I know he wants to talk about it, but Wilson Contreras is no longer the primary catcher for the Cardinals. It seems like Jed protected his value really well, and it seems like we kind of might have even escaped with one on that one. I love Wilson. He was a part of that team. He was the heartbeat of the Cubs. He'll always be a part of the Cubs, but Jed Hoyer, the star, is to you.
And the 4th star of the week goes to Gary Bettman, NHL commissioner, for rigging the draft lottery so that Connor Bedard is now a member of the Chicago Blackhawks.
So if you haven't been able to figure it out yet, you wonderful listeners and watchers of this podcast, Nick gets all the meme and joke stuff.
I mean, Bettman was not going to risk the best prospect coming up since McDavid ending it up in Columbus for his prime. He just was not going to risk it.
What do you got against Ohio, Nick?
I don't have anything against Ohio. I've driven down the turnpike through on the way to Pennsylvania, and their rest stops are really nice. But
my heart is in Ohio.
Gary Bettman doesn't like Columbus. They're way too small a market. He wants the big players in the big markets, and we got a big player in Connor Bedard coming to one of the biggest markets in the league. So
the 3rd largest media market in the country.
Yep.
I looked it up before we started doing this. So
good for you.
All right. Yeah, I do my research. All right, moving right along onto our SWFU section. Again, I think 2 weeks in a row, I don't think we messed anything up, at least that I'm aware of. We'd have nothing.
That or we're not popular enough for people to tell us where we did.
You know what?
I'm a little bit of both.
I'm going to like to think we're perfect and just let my ego get bigger. So nothing for SWFU again, but if you do find that we have messed something up in our episode, you can feel free to tweet at any of us. Again, I have our Twitter handle in my description here at 4starpod Chi, CHI as in Chicago. Andrew at AJ Freeman 25, Nick at Ndicola 21, and Teige at TM Mullen 007 because he loves James Bond. That's what it was.
Every time I try making a new username on anything, I always try to avoid the 007. And I'm like, I've been doing it for 14 years.
Yeah,
just keep it going.
You're already committed.
All right, so now moving on to, I think, our fan favorite segment. I'm going to start, depending on how good these go, making clips and posting them throughout the week of our 180s or anything else funny that happens over the course of the show. But we are moving on to the complete 180 here. I'll go first because my name is listed first. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a Nick style rant here this week. For those of you that don't know, I hope most of you know who Patrick Mahomes is. He is the multi-Super Bowl MVP winning quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. He happens to have a younger brother named Jackson, who is a total worthless piece of human garbage. Jackson Mahomes has done such things as when the Washington, now Commanders, did a ceremony to unveil Sean Taylor's statue. Sean Taylor was a cornerback, for the then previously named Washington football team in the early 2000s, who killer player, went to the Pro Bowl, just awesome all-around person, unfortunately was murdered. He got shot, and they did a nice ceremony for him to unveil his statue. They painted his jersey number into a little patch of grass on the field, and it was cordoned off with those fancy velvet rope things. And Jackson Mahomes, at the time that this was happening, decided it would be a good idea to boost his internet clout and do a TikTok dance on the freaking cordoned off number on the field. Now, on top of this, Patrick Mahomes has a wife named Brittany, who is also a worthless piece of human garbage. She has been seen with Jackson Mahomes at FedEx. I think it was at FedEx. No, sorry. It was at Arrowhead. Got too caught up in Washington. But at Arrowhead, the Chiefs got beaten. And so Jackson and Brittany Mahomes decided to dump water, which again, it's water, whatever, but they just decided to empty their water bottles on opposing fans and then like storm off all pouty because, our little Patrick lost. Well, to make matters worse, just wanted to give a little backstory. This isn't even the meat and potatoes of it all. Jackson Mahomes has been arrested for sexual battery, for forcibly kissing a nightclub owner, and it was all caught on camera. Jackson Mahomes, you are a worthless piece of human garbage. 80% of all human beings have siblings. 80%. Do you want to know how many other NFL siblings wind up in situations like this? None that I've heard of. So, good luck. Hope you go to jail. You deserve it. I think I looked it up. It's got a maximum sentence of a $350,000 fine and 43 months in prison, if I remember correctly. I feel like those numbers are sticking out in my head. Somebody can correct me in the SWFU section next week. But yeah, just wanted to fill everybody in on how awesome Patrick Mahomes' little brother is. So that's my 180.
That's fun. All he had to do,
It's a 180.
all he had to do was just not be a piece of human garbage and just lay low and relax.
Seriously.
Yep.
Then he's got like a billionaire brother that can just do whatever. But
Patrick Mahomes signed the single most lucrative football contract in history. What was it? 10 years or 15 years? I know it was
10
10 years, $500 million freaking dollars.
Yeah.
For one contract. That's going to get renegotiated down the road.
I'll say this, and we'll get to Ty for his. None of this should, rest on Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, no.
Whoever. I hope that people don't do that. Like, he is not responsible.
No, we like
for
Patrick.
The actions. He's not
Patrick's
responsible for the actions of his brother.
No,
so
he needs to have better taste in women and keep his brother in check. Maybe you should have beat him up a little bit more when they were younger. But
hey, it looks like he's got a beautiful family. So I mean. I'll give him that too. Anyway, Ty.
Oh, no, wait. I need to add one more thing. I apologize. The other reason I wanted to hate on Brittany a little bit is because she accused the media of ruining Jackson's life after the sexual battery charge. After, not before when the TikTok dancing was happening, after a sexual battery charge. So that's why I was bringing Brittany into all of this as well.
Yeah, that's not a great.
Now I'm done.
Not a great.
Okay.
Take it away, Ty. First 180. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, my first 180 is going to be more on the goofy side. Fellas, we all listen to podcasts, don't we? Now, I recently have been listening to what's called white noise podcasts to go to bed. It's stuff like rainforest, rain on the canopy, or like, thunderstorms on the ocean. Now, these are 8-hour loops of about, 5-second clips that just keep on going on loop. And I'm trying to wonder how much ad revenue that these people are getting. So I think that that's a market that we could tap into.
Are you going to make your 180 segment just like a white noise segment?
You are slowly drifting off to sleep.
I'm making my 180 segment to propose to you guys that we start our own white noise segment. Fear not, I got the first 8 episodes planned out. All right, and I'd like to relay them right now. First episode.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Jordan DuPont vaping for 8 hours. Just the sound of him hitting his vape and exhaling. That's the first episode. I think that'll really ease people into it.
Damn, dude, why you gotta help me like that?
Second episode, Teige Mullen's book club. All right, I'm gonna read, and I'm not gonna it's gonna be me reading 8 hours straight. If I don't finish the book, I pick it up. Next episode. They're not gonna be happy books though. They're gonna be like, oh my god, what's wrong with this person type books. All right, really, really good night stories. Third
like
episode.
Hemingway to me.
I got a lot of material. Third episode, Nick DiCola heckling baseball players for 8 hours straight.
Are you sure that's like a soothing noise to get people to go to sleep?
Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Just wait till you hear about episode 5.
Jason
Episode 4.
That was a Nick heckle. Sorry to interrupt. That was a Nick heckle.
No, you're good.
No hate against Jason Bay. Nick said that at a Cubs game.
I mean, I hated him in that moment because he was playing against the Cubs. But
Episode 4. All right, this might be my personal favorite. 8 hours of Andrew Freeman grunting. Episode 5.
Love that.
Episode 5. This one's for my fellow veterans out there. 8 hours of drill sergeants screaming at you. Episode 6. An 8-hour loop of a cow munching on grass, but as it continues, you start to wonder if it's something else. Episode 7. I put a lot of time into this, people. Episode 7.
Clearly.
Teige rattling off emo song titles he's been coming up with his friend. Episode 8. Ambient baseball noises, including Pat Hughes' Game 7 call. And so that's my first 8 episodes planned out. Let me know what you guys think. I think it's a market we could tap into, get some extra money on the side. I'm just saying.
I feel like to be a good ambient noise podcast, it has to be like, a bit more soothing than like 90% of the stuff you mentioned.
I don't know.
I'll just do ASMR nursery rhymes.
I don't know. I think my grunts are very soothing.
If Jordan DuPont vaping for 8 hours doesn't put you to sleep like a baby, I don't know what would. Okay,
man, you are just totally outing me right now. Putting that all out there.
I'm not saying you have to vape for 8 hours straight, Jordan. You record yourself doing it for 10 seconds, and then you just put it on loop.
It's called.
No, I'm just saying. I try to hide the fact that I have a problem, and you just.
I mean, he's just.
It's on YouTube, so
I never said you had a problem. That was you.
You said you had a problem. Teige didn't say you had a problem.
I could have you could have just done it once a day, one hit a day. No,
I could have done it.
You,
I don't vape.
Yeah,
hey,
I could do it once.
It's Teige's first 180. He's coming out guns blazing. He's not having any chill, guys. I mean,
that's right.
Was zero
I spent writing it for like 30 minutes.
Teige just made himself Teige's the beta right now. Nick is still the alpha for the 180
Don't
segment.
put that pressure on me, man.
Oh, pressure is on, bud. You got a lot to follow up on. I got heated for that.
Pressure is all your fault for setting the standards so high. So you just got to live up to it.
I guess so.
Yeah, that open letter is our most viewed YouTube clip. It's our only clip.
It's also our only YouTube clip.
It's more viewed than the other episodes. So,
all right.
Anyway.
All right. Andrew, do you want to rant about the Bulls again, or did you kind of cover everything you wanted
I would
to
love
cover?
to rant. You know what? I'll just expand on it because I just want to talk more about how Jerry Reinsdorf is the worst owner known to man. As it currently sits right now in the current NBA landscape, you go back to when Reinsdorf bought the team in the 1980s and how lucky he was to buy the team just as Michael Jeffrey Jordan was drafted into the organization here, the best basketball player to ever play. And he drags the sorry organizations to 6 championships and makes them a global brand, all not by himself. Obviously he had a lot of help with, Pippen, Phil, and Rodman, all the guys on those great teams. But for all intents and purposes, Michael Jordan was the reason why the Bulls were really the standard bearer for the NBA for such a long time as a global brand. And Reinsdorf has just been riding the coattails of that basically ever since then. And we should have known this was going to happen when Reinsdorf basically let it known that he was fine letting Jerry Krause blow the team up after winning their second straight three-peat and basically saying, the best player of all time wants to come back and play again. But Jerry Krause is so petty that he doesn't want, Phil Jackson to come back as his coach, that he's willing to let the best player to ever play the game. And the whole reason we are successful as an organization, he's willing to let that guy go and retire because he's too petty. He just signed Phil Jackson for another year as his head coach. Like, the fact that you have an owner that was content with that just kind of shows what he was right away. And then as a owner of the White Sox, we're not a White Sox podcast here, but if it weren't for a lightning in a bottle, 2004 when they won the World Series, 2005. If it weren't for a lightning in a bottle season, we'd be thinking about the White Sox in the same way as it's just mismanaged team. And you look at how disastrous their season has been this year, after all the hype going into really over the past couple of years. Just Reinsdorf, man, just everything he touches turns to absolute dog shit. And it gets exemplified more with extending Arturas Karnisovas and just letting mediocrity play. He is one of the worst owner to have for a sports team because he's not getting into a bunch of scandals away from the court. He doesn't come off as just like this really just giant asshole off the court that rubs everybody the wrong way, but he just sets the tone for your organization. It's just mediocrity personified, no ambition for wanting to have a successfully run organization. He's super cheap. He doesn't want to spend money, and he is content just being just good enough to get a couple extra butts in the seat for those playoff games, get that extra revenue, and he's going to run with it to the piggy bank and waste it on his White Sox, who are going to be shitty anyway, like I said before. So, yeah, I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, Reinsdorf, if it weren't for Donald Sterling being an absolute racist piece of garbage, we would be thinking about Reinsdorf as one of the worst NBA owners, if not the worst NBA owner out there, because, again, it's so frustrating as a Bulls fan. And all I can say is sell the damn team, dude, or just get out of the picture already. I don't want to wish death on anybody on this podcast here, but holy cow, we just need the Reinsdorf reign of terror here to be over with here. I'm just ready for it.
Donald Sterling is a name I have not heard in a real long time.
Yeah.
I could have gone much longer without having heard that name.
Trust me, I didn't want to bring him up, but Reinsdorf brings out the worst in all of us.
God.
All right, and the moment everyone has been waiting for.
We're hyping this up way too much, man.
You put the pressure on yourself, man. That Aaron Rodgers letter was too good.
All right, well, shut up, Jordan. I'm gonna take my 180 this week and do something that I don't get to do that often, but when I do, it's great, and that is completely shit all over the St. Louis Cardinals, everyone's most hated baseball team. So if you haven't been following the Cardinals this year, they have had an absolutely horrendous start to the year. They have the worst record in the National League. They're 9 or 10 games back in the division, and it's just not going well. There's the first week of the season, there was a huge controversy because manager Oliver Marmol threw, I think it was Tyler O'Neill, under the bus for not, I think he didn't run out to first base or whatever, and that
He's running home.
He always run home, yeah, and that caused a whole stir. So the vibes down in St. Louis are just not very great, and that brings us to the Wilson Contreras situation. So Wilson Contreras, as we all know, Cub he was in the organization for well over a decade, won the World Series in 2016, was a big contributor in there. He became a free agent this past offseason, and he signed a 5-year, $75 million contract to be the catcher, the heir apparent to Yadier Molina, the Hall of Famer. I'm doing air quotes if you're not watching the video. But so he signed that contract. They signed him to that. And when he joined the team, when he gave his press conference, whenever he was quoted, he made it a point. He seemed to make it a point to try to stick it to the Cubs organization. Like, he was talking about how great it was to be a Cardinal and talking up Yadier and all that. Well, recently, the Cardinals decided that Wilson was no longer going to catch for them. So basically, he spent this whole offseason, hyping himself up. It's like he's going to be the heir apparent to Yadier and how it was such an it was such an honor. And then 6 weeks into the season, the Cardinals like, yeah, we just want you to never catch for us again. Like it's just insane. And not only that, Oliver Marmol, the manager, started throwing Wilson under the bus too, because he started throwing him out. He said he needs to improve in that area. And there was another quote from him that I thought was really telling. Basically, someone asked the manager the areas where they wanted Wilson to improve. And he said, I wouldn't say it's the pregame prep as much. That would be too simple. There's real work to be done. The way I would describe it is truly an understanding of our internal system of executing the game plan for each individual pitcher. The reality is it's more work than he's ever had to do. So from that, it makes it sound like they wanted him to like put together the game plans, which makes me think, was Yadier Molina just their entire pitching analytics department?
Yeah, he was.
Might have been.
Because there's a lot of stories coming out from all these pitchers talking about their pitching coaches down in like AA and AAA and lower levels too, that are just like these pitching coaches aren't there for them and stuff like that, and they're trying to bring to light just kind of that there's a lot of things in the Cardinals organization that are just kind of in shambles, that it's like Cardinals fans are coming out and they're like, oh my God, like we didn't realize, like we love Gotti, but like we didn't realize how much he was the entire team. And yeah, he was.
I will say, I did the air quotes around Hall of Famer earlier, but I think there is no better case for his Hall of Fame resume than this past month for the Cardinals. The second he leaves, it just all goes to shit. Anyway, it's very fun to watch them suffer. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals not doing well is, man, can you imagine if we get the Cardinals sucking and the Packers sucking in 1 year? We will be insufferable.
Yeah, I'm not
going to feel bad about
not
it.
Happen though.
No, you shut your mouth. It's going to happen. We are going to beat the Packers twice this year.
I wish, man.
Put it on a t-shirt.
One more point on the Cardinals. Even if they expect their catcher to basically be their entire pitching analytics department, they know who Wilson Contreras is. They've played against him for years. And you know what you're getting. You're getting an above average bat. He's got an arm, but he's not great at framing. He's not a great defensive catcher. That's never been his strong suit. So you commit that money to that guy for that role. And now you have to put him at DH and outfield, where that's where all their big prospects are coming from. So now he's blocking them. It's just a disaster all around. And I don't know what they were thinking. I'm glad they did it, because it's really stupid and it's really funny.
Yeah, well, the bat kind of hurt us today, but
I prepared this before the game today, so I would rather not talk about the game today.
Yeah,
that's for next week. That's
next week's Sunday.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any final thoughts before we sign off here this week?
I think we're on a good note.
All right. Well, thank you again, Teige. We're glad you're here. We are looking forward to a wonderful and fruitful partnership moving forward.
I'm glad to be here, man. I'm excited. This is fun. I will do most of my effort on the 180s, though, and no research. I'm just
as is tradition.
It is decided. That's the league reference for those of you that don't know. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for checking us out on the 4-Star Podcast. Again, I'm Jordan DuPont. I have our Twitter handle listed at 4-Star Pod Shy. Man, I can't talk today. So check us out on Twitter there. As always, joined by Nick DiCola at NDiCola21 and Andrew Freeman at AJ Freeman25. You can also check out his other work on the Bear Report at 247sports.com and the Picks for Polls podcast. And once again, welcome Teige at TM Mullen 007. If you're checking us out on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We're looking to make this even bigger and better so that we can come to you more often and give you more awesome content. If you're checking us out on any of the streaming platforms for podcasts, make sure to share those links as well. Thank you. As always, we'll be back ranting and raving again next week.